This is the YouTube that introduces indices, which are used in any sequence and in particular for strings and for lists. And so I've got some functions that I've put into the editor illustrating several examples of using indices. But looking at this first function, what I've done is I've defined a string S1 called dogs and a list L1. Dogs, cats, 3.14159, that's a float. 13.2 up arrow 2, that's a string, and 27, that's an int. And so the way indices work for strings is illustrated here for the string dogs. The first element D has the index 0, the second element O has the index 1, the third element G has the index 2, and the fourth element S has the index 3. And so I can use these indices to refer to the individual characters in S1, and I can do the same thing for L1. And so the thing to note here is that the beginning index value is not 1, it's 0, and so you count from 0 all the way up. And so to continue with explaining this function, these two lines compute the length of the string and the list. And then I have two sections of code here inside here, the function. The first one, which having computed the length of the string, I then set up a for loop that has a range statement that goes from 0 to the length of the string. Well, the length of dogs is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so this range statement is going to go through here 4 times because the value of this is 4. And index is going to take on the sequential values of 0, 1, 2, and 3. And so if I run this this function here, index 1, as you can see from the output, going through this loop, so here is the loop output, the first loop, and so I'm printing out index 0D, and note the syntax here. In order to get the 0th element of S1, I go S1 of index, and this is an open square brackets, close square bracket syntax. And so these square brackets now have two meanings. One is a list, but in context here, Python interprets this as an index because it's jammed right up next to a variable S1 that has been used to store a string. And so Python knows that, so it can interpret S1 of 0 as being D. So you can see that right there. And S1 of 1 as being O, and S1 of 2 as G, and S1 of 3 as being S. So essentially we're walking through S1 one character at a time using indices. And then the next print statement I do with a loop is the same exact idea, except now I use this second for loop to step through all the indices referring to individual elements of the list. And so up here I've computed the length of the list, which you can see is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so this would be a range 5 for the second one, which means index is going to take on the values 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, which correspond to, as you can see from the printout, the first element let me just say it this way. The 0th element of L1, which is dogs, the 1th element of L1, which is cats, 2th element, which is 3.14159, the 3rd element of L1, which is the string 13, up arrow 2, and the 4th element, which is the int 27. So let's take a look at the second function here. Okay, so the second function now is showing you what you can do with index ranges, and so let's call it, and you can see what the output's going to be here. The output is. So what you can do now is, using the same S1 and L1 that I did before, is you can go index colon index, and in the first index will the element corresponding to that will be included here, and the last one will it will include all elements of S1, all characters of S1 up to, but not including the index corresponding to the last index that you have. And so, in other words, when I do S1 of 0 colon 1, I will get just the 0th element of D, which is, of course, D. 0 colon 1 will give me the 0th and 1th, not including the 2th, which is D and O. 0 colon 3 will give me the 0th, the 1th, and the 2th. The 0th, the 1th, and the 2th. And 0 colon 4 will give me the 0th, the 1th, the 2th, and the 3th. When you go beyond indices which correspond to anything in the string, Python forgives you and just gives you the whole string. Okay, so you notice that this is okay, doesn't give you an exception or an error. However, if you look at line 36 here, this would, if I tried to get the third element, okay, so that's an S. But if I try and get the fourth element here, it's going to be string index out of range, because the 3th element is the last element in dogs. 4th element is beyond that. So in other words, you can, for a range, this can be beyond the end, but for a single index, it has to be within range. This next series of print statements does the same thing for a list. So I'll let you stop the video and slow down and just look at that. But it works exactly the same way. So let's go to this next under bar 3 function. Alright, so if I do that, so the point here is there's some defaults, and you can see here, if you go no index colon 3, it will start and give you the 0th, the 1th, and the 2th, not including the 3rd. So here's the 0th, the 1th, and the 2th. Does not include the 3rd, or the 3th if you like, which would be S in dogs. L1 open bracket, no index colon 3 close bracket gives me the 0th, the 1th, and the 2th elements of L1. And if you consider the mirror image of that, you can go S1 of 2 colon, which gives you everything in S1 from the 2th all the way through to the end. And so G is the 2th element in S1 all the way through to the end, which is S. And similarly, I can do the same thing with L1. 2 colon no index gives me the 2th element of L1 all the way through to the end, which are these 3 elements. Alright, so let's see. One more function to go here. Show you the last one here. Negative indices. Alright, so it turns out, and this is a convenient feature, you can refer to indices in a sequence with either 0 and positive integers or negative integers. And so if you take, for example, S1, which is DOGS. Um, the way I've already shown you to associate indices is 0, 1, 2, and 3, and that this bottom one here um, is counting from the left end going to the right. But you can also use -1, which refers to the rightmost character, and you can count towards the left: -1, -2, -3, -4. So you have this ability to go either from the left end towards the right, or from the right end towards the left. You can do the same thing with a list. All right, so here are some examples down here. S1 of -1 would be the rightmost element of dogs. You can see it right there. It corresponds with this printout. The rightmost element of L1 is the int 27. Now, if you do this, S1 of -3 to -1, it's going to take the -3th, the -2th, but will not include the -1th element. And so you get the -3, the -2th, but the S is not included. Works, in other words, the same way as the ranging worked up above here. Here's a similar example for L1. Here now is an example where I have no index all the way through to -1, and what this will give is it will give S1 the whole string except for the last character. So -1 is not included. So not dogs, but dog. Same thing for string. And this last one now shows a hybrid example where we start with the 2th element, which is G, and we go up to, but not including the -1th element. So that would just give you the single character G. All right, so you might want to watch this several times, slow it down, play in the shell, just to make sure you get the idea.